Hello learners, my name is Arundita and welcome to this video. As you may remember, we briefly covered IVRS or Interactive Voice Response System in Unit 3 of Block 1 and also in one of the videos where we were discussing creative communication practices for developing a shared understanding. This video explores how IVRS can be used as a participatory tool to bring user voices. Let us see what we will cover in this video. So we are going to start with understanding what are user voices and why are user voices important. Then we will go on to understand how can IVRS be a participatory tool to bring user voices. Under that, we'll briefly understand what's IVRS, how does an IVRS function, and also some case studies on IVRS-based platforms, how they can be used to address social development problems. And lastly, possibilities and challenges of the IVRS platform. Towards the end, we will sum up and we have an exercise for you too. So let us start. So what are user voices? So users of an IVRS platform could be anyone. It could be people from urban areas or people from rural areas. If we zoom into rural areas, let us think who could possibly be our users. It could be women or women's collectives who want to know and share information about, say, health and nutrition. It could be frontline workers like Asha, Anganwadis or ANMs. It could be young children or students wanting to maybe hear some lessons or stories, or it could be farmers who want to share some innovative farming techniques with others, or even know what they can do to prevent pest attacks, for example, to their crops. However, there are some key challenges in these areas when it comes to these users accessing and sharing relevant information. Well, there are multiple factors for it. First is some segments of the population have greater access to information than others. And the ones who have greater access have more role to play in information exchange and even in determining what information will be shared. You see, reasons such as lack of education or a lack of information on where to get correct information, or availability of information sources such as newspaper or internet being not available are some of the problems of access. And this problem greatly magnifies when it comes to women in the rural areas. There is a lack of participation of communities from the rural and remote areas in knowledge generation. Also, there lies a huge gap when it comes to people in remote and rural areas in terms of their participation in the exchange of information and contextual knowledge. So this further leads to an overall lack of awareness of their rights and entitlements in these communities. Also, media platforms with top-down models of communication controlled by outsiders are not able to meet the requirement of remote communities. In this approach, rural communities are just at a receiving end of whatever information is designed and generated by others. Now, why are these user voices important? Because people-driven process can build participatory media networks that can not only inform people but also empower communities, because they are owning those media channels, they are owning the information flow, and so on and so forth. Participation in information creation and knowledge generation also has the potential to positively affect democracy, because everybody's voices are being heard and hence affect civic and political participation. It enables citizens to become aware of their rights and entitlements and also their duties as equal citizens and hence it improves accountability. Further, user voices can also help policymakers to develop data-driven, effective, and contextual solutions. Now let us see how can IVRS act as a participatory tool to bring user voices. As I said earlier, we did cover or introduce IVRS briefly in block 1. Let us do a quick recap. IVRS is a computer-based telephone response system that uses a specialized telephone hardware and a digitized voice. In simple language, we can understand it as a telephone connected to a talking computer that can provide various kinds of information such as on health and nutrition, education, agriculture, and also record user voices. So you may remember this diagram. So how IVRS works is we call a free phone number and we immediately receive a call back with an automated greeting and brief instructions on how the system works. Next, a menu or a range of audio content is presented and the callers can make a selection by pressing appropriate buttons on their normal phone keypad. Now, why is this platform called interactive? Because the user can interact with the audio resources by recording a comment after listening to any audio content. Not only that, they can also record their own audio, either related to the content that's playing or unrelated to the content. Then the content that the user records, it gets stored on the platform, and after moderation and verification, it is published on the platform and can be heard by other callers. So, this kind of platform is free to the callers, free to the end users, and it is easy to access. It's available 24/7. It can be accessed across geographic boundaries. It can be accessible just by a simple basic normal phone which has keypads working. And hence it enables bringing out user voices and leads to or enables social change. So let us see how can we engage users in IVRS. What is the process? So the first is a need assessment survey. We go to the community and we take inputs from all the stakeholders, in this case the community. Some sort of secondary research is also done. What are the issues in the community. Then studies such as awareness studies, availability of resources or accessibility study to be done, and then needs and gaps are to be identified existing in the community. The next step is content design. With all those inputs from the first step of needs assessment, now we design the content. Now, the content should be sensitive to social and cultural dynamics of the community. And it could be in multiple formats. It could be local news. It could be in the form of governance issues. It could be sector specific. By sector specific, I mean it could be agriculture, nutrition, health, water, anything. And it could also be in the form of poetry, it could be folk songs, it could be jokes, dramas, or anything. And one important point of content design is user feedback, that there should be a mechanism of the users giving a feedback into the system. The third step is, after we have designed the content, we need to engage with the local community. So, we can create a local pool of resource people and train them in using the IVRS, in moderating the IVRS, on listening to IVRS audios. And also these communities would play an important role because they would be like these local resource people who would orient the community in using the platform, basically improving user interface. And then once the content is playing on the IVRS, we have to monitor it. How do we monitor it? So we have statistics to analyze effectiveness, like, how many callers took the call, how many callers listened to, what is the duration of the callers listening to the content. So we get all these statistics. We have mechanisms in IVRS to measure all these data of the callers, to measure the effectiveness. What is the preference of time? When are the people listening, either in the morning or the evening or afternoon? And also measure shifts. Have the users behavior in using this changed, or it has remained the same? So everything like that we can monitor. It's an interesting point that we can also conduct pre and post surveys in this platform. What do we mean by pre and post surveys? Surveys such as, if you do an intervention, you do a survey with the people before that intervention to know, their knowledge or attitudes and practice. And then after you run the intervention or the content, then we do a post survey with the same people to understand whether there has been some shift in their knowledge or perception. And then we also need to monitor the recordings from users. Like, there are many sorts of recordings that come on IVRS. We need to keep a tab on it, we need to monitor it, verify it, and then lead to publishing the content. So this again, if you see this arrow, this process acts as a need assessment. So this is like an iterative cycle of IVRS that can be used and continuously be improved with following these regular processes in iteration. Now let us see what is content on IVRS. Like, what are the types of content on the IVRS? So broadly, there are two types of content. First is a studio generated content, and second is a user generated content. So studio generated content could be of many kinds. It could be a narration, it could be in the form of quizzes, question and answer, we could have discussion forums, interviews, audio dramas, or anything. Another part of studio generated content is an expert generated content. It is a part of studio generated content only. So what we do in expert generated content is we call some expert on say nutrition, or a healthcare professional, or some district collector who can give you some information about some things, or somebody working on health related to COVID who can give you suggestions on what to eat and what not to eat, and what rumors to believe and what to not believe. So I'll give you an example of Mobile Vani, which we also briefly covered in block 1, and share 2 short videos on how studio generated content works. The first video is on health and nutrition.
नमस्ते, हमारा नाम मीना देवी है, आपकी सीएम दीदी। हम 10 जीविका समूह को देखते हैं और इन समूह में माँ और बच्चे के स्वास्थ्य और पोषण के बारे में नियमित रूप से चर्चा करते हैं। हर दीदी को बताई गई बातों को परिवार में सबको बताने और उनका पालन करना सिखाते हैं। अब इतना कुछ याद रखना ना हमारे लिए आसान है और ना ही बाकी दीदियों के लिए। काश हमारा कोई मददगार होता। शुक्र है जीविका मोबाइल वाणी का, एक ऐसी निशुल्क सेवा जो खास आपको और आपके परिवारजनों को जानकारी देने के लिए बनाई गई है। जानकारी जैसे गर्भवती महिला, धात्री माता या बच्चों के पोषण और देखरेख का, दस्त होने पर ORS कैसे पिलाना, कृषि संबंधित बातें, परिवार नियोजन और सरकारी योजनाओं के बारे में जानकारी, और भी कई सारी बातें जिन्हें सुनने के लिए आपको सिर्फ एक मिस कॉल देना होगा। इससे बहुतों को लाभ मिला है, जैसे हमारी पड़ोस वाली लक्ष्मी चाची को। आइए उन्हीं से सुनते हैं कैसे।
जब हमारी बहू पेट से थी तो बहुत कमजोर हो गई थी। फिर एक दिन सीएम दीदी हमें जीविका मोबाइल वाणी पर चल रहे मातृ स्वास्थ्य का कार्यक्रम सुनाई। वहाँ बताई गई सारी बातों को हम गौर से सुने और अपने परिवार को भी सुनाए। उन बातों का पालन करने से हमारी बहू की तबीयत में बहुत सुधार आया। अब तो हम एक प्यारी सी पोती की दादी हैं।
और कमाल की बात ये है कि जानकारी सुनने के साथ साथ इसमें आप अपने अनुभव या सुझाव भी रिकॉर्ड करके औरों को सुना सकते हैं।
And the second video is how can IVRS be useful for children in education?
रानी, तुम फिर से किताब सामने रखकर कान में मोबाइल लगाकर बैठी हो। कितनी बार बोले हैं तुमसे कि ऐसे वक्त बर्बाद मत किया करो। अभी बाबा जी से शिकायत करते हैं हम।
अरे भैया, आप हमारी भी बात सुनेंगे या नहीं?
क्या सुनूं?
हम मोबाइल में गाने नहीं बल्कि शिक्षकों के सुझाव और विचार सुन रहे हैं।
अच्छा, तुम हमको उल्लू बना रही हो। अभी दिखाता हूँ।
अरे भैया रुकिए तो, लीजिए आप भी सुनिए।
नमस्कार, हम उच्च विद्यालय के शिक्षक मनोज कुमार बोल रहे हैं। गुरु मंत्र कार्यक्रम सुनने वाले सभी छात्रों को हम बताना चाहते हैं कि मैट्रिक और इंटरमीडिएट परीक्षा लिखने में अभी कम ही समय बचा है और इस समय का सदुपयोग करने के लिए आप सभी एक रूटीन बनाएं, जहां दिन में आप कम से कम 6 से 7 घंटे पढ़ाई के लिए रखें।
अरे, ये तो सही में अच्छा कार्यक्रम है, लेकिन ये सब कैसे, मतलब कहाँ बज रहा है?
मोबाइल वाणी पर।
अब ये मोबाइल वाणी क्या है?
मोबाइल वाणी एक ऐसी निशुल्क सेवा है जहां दिन भर ऐसे कार्यक्रम चलते ही रहते हैं। शिक्षकों के साक्षात्कार, छात्रों के अनुभव और यहाँ तक हमारे स्कूल में हुए बाल संसद और मीना मंच की बातें भी होती हैं।
अच्छा, तो ये बातें कौन रिकॉर्ड करता है और कैसे?
मोबाइल वाणी के निशुल्क नंबर पर मिस्ड कॉल देके कोई भी छात्र और छात्रा, शिक्षक, युवा, युवती इसमें अपने विचार या अनुभव भी रिकॉर्ड कर सकते हैं और बाकियों द्वारा रिकॉर्ड कराए संदेश भी सुन सकते हैं। यहाँ तक कि हम अपने समुदाय से जुड़ी बातें भी मोबाइल वाणी सुनने के दौरान 3 नंबर दबाकर रिकॉर्ड कर सकते हैं।
तो क्या हम भी इसमें सारी बातें रिकॉर्ड कर सकते हैं?
बिल्कुल भाई।
Okay, so you saw those 2 videos. Let us know what you think about it. Or the second type of content is user-generated content. Again, user-generated content, as you may remember, are the content which are recorded by the users. If I call an IVRS system and record an audio, that becomes user-generated content. And even user-generated content are of different types. It could be grievances, it could be reporting an incident. I want to report an incident. It could be songs, poetries, or it could be anything. So here are 4 audios, friends, on what is a user-generated content. So first is, if you'll see that there's a man who's sharing the recipe of chicken. So this is a kind of content that people record.
हम शामिल है, मेरा घर किशनगंज है और मैं बिहार से हूँ। मैं आप लोगों को ये बात बताने जा रहा हूँ कि चिकन कैसे बनाते हैं। चिकन बनाने से पहले हम 1 पाव या आधा केजी या 1 केजी या जितना भी हो चिकन हम ला लेते हैं। उसके बाद चिकन को अच्छी तरह से धुलाई करते हैं। धुलाई करने के बाद थोड़ा सा फिर कच्चा पानी में चिकन को उबला देते हैं ताकि उसमें से जो स्टेंट है, जो हानिकारक पदार्थ है, वो बाहर निकल जाते हैं और चिकन हल्का फुल्का पक भी जाता है। उसमें से फिर हम फुली भूनते आधा केजी। उसके बाद तेल देते हैं, मसाला देते हैं उसी में। इसके बाद चिकन को अच्छी तरीके से फेंटते हैं। जैसे कि हम एक दूध को पानी जब मिलाते हैं तो फेंटते हैं तो कितनी अच्छी होता है, पूरा फ्लेवर पूरा हो जाता है। उसी तरह चिकन को भी हम लोग फेंटते हैं। उसके बाद थोड़ी सी पानी दे करके हम लोग उसमें गलाना स्टार्ट करते हैं। जब गल जाता है उसके बाद उसमें धनिया डालते हैं। धनिया डालने के बाद उसमें थोड़ी सी हरी मिर्च डालते हैं ताकि अच्छा सेंट आए और खाने में टेस्टी हो।
The second is people putting a grievance on how they were not receiving ration during COVID.
नमस्कार दोस्तों, मेरा नाम मीना देवी है। मेरा गांव मोरियाडी है और मैं गही पंचायत से हूँ। मैं चिराग के माध्यम से एक कहानी सुनाती हूँ जिसका नाम है सोनी और माधव की कहानी। सोनी और माधव का घर एक ही गांव में आसपास था। पिछले साल उन दोनों की शादी उनके माँ बाप ने कर दी। माधव एक गरीब परिवार से था। 6 महीना खेती करके खाता था और 6 महीना मजदूरी करके माधव के साथ सोनी और माधव की माँ मिलजुल कर काम करती थी। शादी करके सोनी अपनी ससुराल आ गई थी। सोनी अभी 17 साल की है और वह माँ बनने वाली है। उसकी सास इस बात को छिपाने के लिए कहा। धीरे धीरे सोनी मेहनत कम करने लगती है। उसकी सास ने भी काम करने की कहा। जब 5 महीना बीत जाता है तो सोनी माँ सोनी से मिलने के लिए आती है। तब सोनी अपने गर्व की बात अपनी माँ को बताती है। सोनी की माँ उसे आंगनबाड़ी सेविका दीदी के पास लेकर के जाती है। सेविका दीदी गर्व को छिपाने से काफी नाराज हो जाती है। देर से ही सोनी का प्रसव पूर्वजात शुरू होता है। सेविका दीदी और आशा दीदी तय करती है कि सोनी का ज्यादा ध्यान रखना है। सोनी कम उम्र की है और पूरा जांच भी नहीं हुआ। जैसे जैसे प्रसव का दिन नजदीक होने लगा, घर में खाना भी कम होने लगा। उसके काम न कर पाने के कारण कमी पर असर पड़ने लगता है। सोनी अक्सर सबको खाना खिलाने के बाद अंत में जो भी बचता था उसे खाती थी। सोनी कमजोर होने लगती है और उसकी कमजोरी के कारण उसके परिवार भी परेशान होने लगती है। सोनी ने एक बेटी को जन्म दिया। उसकी बेटी जन्म के समय 2 किलो की थी।
The third is how a migrant worker who was stuck in Mumbai with no support had called to seek for support.
मेरा नाम मुकेश यादव, मैं बिहार का रहने वाला हूँ, जिला जमुई, प्रखंड सोनभद्र। मेरा विधायक जी का नाम है सावित्री देवी जी। हम मुंबई में फंसे हुए हैं। एक करजत है जगह का नाम, पनवेल से 20 किलोमीटर बाजू में हूँ करजत। और गांव का नाम है मुद्रा। हमारे पास खाने पीने का प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है, पैसे नहीं है। हम लोग मजदूर हैं, इसके वजह से हम लोग पैसे के ब्याज देर भूखे रहना पड़ रहा है। थोड़ा बहुत पैसे था, हम लोग खा पी के खत्म कर दिए हैं। सर, मेरी आवाज जो भी अधिकारी के पास जाते होंगे, आप लोग प्लीज करके कृपा करके मेरी मदद किया जाए। इससे ज्यादा क्या बोलूं सर। जय हिंद, जय भारत।
And the fourth is a woman called Meena Devi who had recorded an audio where she was sharing a story highlighting the importance of care and nutrition during pregnancy.
मेरा नाम सोनामी शरण है। गाँव बदगुंडा, पंचायत बिल्लिमपुर, जिला जमुई। हम लोग को जो है राशन भी नहीं मिल रहा है, अच्छा से कुछ भी नहीं। खान पीन भी बहुत कठिनाई से होती है। तो कैसे होगा इस तरह करने से? घर से तो कोरोना वायरस से तो निकालने भी नहीं दे रहे हैं।
So friends, by this time in the video, you must have thought that there are many possibilities of IVRS. So let me share some possibilities with you. So a platform like IVRS provides wide access irrespective of geographic barriers. Many people are living in many parts of the country, even in the most remote parts, can listen to this platform. It enables sharing of knowledge, information, opinions, and queries, and it enables peer learning. And you also saw that this platform is also helpful if we want to conduct a survey. It enables interaction between community members and other stakeholders such as NGO, health workers, school teachers, block officials, and even elected representatives. So that means it enables participation of all stakeholders in addressing local and contextual social development challenges. Another interesting possibility of an IVRS is we can run thematic interventions in this. For instance, we want to run an intervention on agriculture, so we can cover various aspects of agriculture: water, livelihood, seeds, inputs, outputs, innovative ways of agriculture, many aspects of agriculture in one theme. Similarly, nutrition or information on government schemes. There are many government schemes that sometimes do not reach the remote areas. So this offers a huge possibility. And finally, it creates a pool of local resource persons who are trained in using the platform and who are trained in orienting the community in using the platform and hence improving user interface. Well, there are also certain challenges of this platform. There can be challenges starting from the user interface. It sounds complicated, and at the first instance, we may not understand what that means, how all of this works, how the system works. I don't know what to press the button. So there are a lot of challenges in user interface. Second is the uneven access to mobile phones in households. We often see in rural areas that not everybody has mobile phones, especially when it comes to women. So if we want to reach out to women with some information or knowledge exchange, sometimes it becomes problematic because many a times women don't own a mobile phone in the household, and they have to depend on other male members of the family for a mobile phone. Sometimes the content in IVRS can become unattractive and boring. So the callers can lose interest. So we need to make the content interesting and very attractive. There can also be language barriers. If we keep playing content, or if we have all the content in English or Hindi, not many community are well versed with Hindi. In Adivasi communities of eastern states of India, they may not be able to record videos in audios in Hindi. They may be able to understand, but if we it increases the effectiveness manifold if we record audios in Santali or say Mundari or any other regional indigenous language. And another challenge is if there is no feedback loop, or if there is no addressing of the grievances, like if a community lodged a complaint and the complaint was not heard or addressed, then eventually the community can lose interest and not listen to the platform anymore. So friends, let us sum up. So IVRS is, we see, a useful tool to bring user voices, to make information exchange participatory and more democratic. The content in the platform needs to be generated in collaboration with the community, having continuous feedback loops. It should keep going back to the community for feedback. There is also a relevance of offline network together with the online network on the digital platform, an offline network of local volunteers to support the platform and to support the users in using the platform. And finally, to achieve impact, the platform should closely be meshed not only with the local community but also with other stakeholders such as government departments, NGOs, to ensure that participation leads to effective action. Now here's an exercise for you. You may remember we shared a case study of Chirag Wani in Unit 3. So here's a number for Chirag Wani. The exercise for you is you can call on this number, listen to the content, and also try recording a comment or a suggestion. These are some references and suggested readings that you'll also find in the chapter. Thank you.